Hi there, my name is Gabrielle Cahoon. Hey, thank you so much for deciding to try out my daily reform. Now, in our video site, my goal is to help teach you Pilates and also general fitness. Now, I have a different take on Pilates than the classical method. I'm STOTT Pilates trained as well as a STOTT Pilates instructor trainer, so a lot of the exercises that you'll be learning come from more of a contemporary approach. I also have a lot of other background in fitness as well, so other than with just the STOTT Pilates principles, I'm going to be sprinkling in other things that have definitely made my body feel better and more successful in my Pilates practice. So we're going to get started learning some basics, some principles of Pilates. I've got my lucky little guy over here. Maybe he's not so lucky. He did break his arm and his jaw, but we're still going to be referring to him today because I want to educate you. I want you to have this series and this site help you feel very comfortable, whether it's in a Pilates class, through our video series, or even as a private session when you're going back to your instructor. So we're going to get started, and our first thing we're going to do is called breathing. So I'm going to move this guy off to the side. We'll get back to him in a bit. And what I want you to do is to lay down onto your back. Now I'm going to be talking to you, and I want you to close your eyes. So go ahead, lay onto your back. I'm not going to do it. You're working out, remember, not me. I'm like your personal teacher, talking you through your workout today. So with your body laying all the way down, I want you to go ahead and let your hands rest down by your sides. Now with your knees bent, I want you to put your feet down flat onto the floor. If you're a little confused, you're like, why is she seated up? Because I'm your teacher, I'm telling you what to do. I may not always do the exercises. I want to educate you and talk you through them. So it's going to look like this. Head down, knees bent, arms by your side. Just lay down here. Now I want you to begin by closing your eyes. You stay down, I'm going to sit up and talk to you. Now with your eyes closed, I want you to notice how it feels to be you today, laying onto your mat. Now bear with me, I'm not going to do this for every single workout and every single video. We're going to do this once because I want you to feel it in your body and come back to this video over and over again. So here we go. You're laying down on the ground. You're you. You're here. You've decided to add Pilates into your daily routine. I want to reform your body daily. Now with your eyes closed, I want you to begin by noticing your natural breath pattern. How are you breathing in? Are you breathing in and out of your nose? Are you breathing in and out of your mouth? Are you doing a little combination of the two? Now I want you to notice if you have any tightness or stiffness inside of your body. Notice if you're carrying any tension anywhere. Is it up into the neck and shoulders, into your back, or do you just feel awesome today? And I want you to notice, where does your breath originate from? High up in your chest, low into your belly, maybe somewhere in between. And then lastly, I want you to notice if your mind is wandering and traveling, or if you feel very focused and present into where you are. So we're going to address all of these things with our breathing principle today. So as you're laying onto the ground, I want you to take one hand onto your chest and one hand onto your belly. Now still with your eyes closed, I'm going to coach you through this. I want you to begin by breathing in through your nose and breathing out through your mouth. Breath in again through your nose and a big exhalation out through your mouth. Keep that pattern going. As you inhale, I want you to feel the side and the back of the rib cage starting to expand, really broad to meet the mat. And as you exhale and breathe out, I want you to breathe out through pursed lips. So if you're blowing through a straw, not holding the breath into your mouth, not building tension into the back of your throat, not a ha sound, not like the air is escaping your body, but it's fluid. We're trying to build fluidity into your body by breathing only. Let's do that twice more. Breath in through your nose and exhale out through your mouth. One more time. Breath in and breathe out. Now some of you may start to get a little bit lightheaded or even yawn or get a little bit dizzy, which is really natural because you're getting a giant gas exchange inside of your body. So just know that that's natural. It'll go away with time. So I don't want to build tension into the neck. When I think of Pilates, I think of strengthening my core. Most of us thinking that as that being our abdominal muscles, even though it's more than that. But if we're breathing into the belly, the belly can't go back and forth too much as we go through your workout. Your back's going to start to take the load. Or if you breathe up into the neck and shoulders, your neck's going to start to take the load. So the only other place left to breathe into is the diaphragm, the rib cage. So sit yourselves up, and I'm going to grab our little guy over here, Mr. Bones. Okay? So if you look at the ribs, okay, we've got 12 ribs of the rib cage, and we also have 12 thoracic vertebrae of the mid-back. So as I'm breathing, I want to feel that the rib cage is starting to open and expand, as if there's a balloon inside of the ribs, opening it, pushing it out 360 degrees or three-dimensionally. I don't really want the breath to fill too much into the front. I want to think of my breath filling more back and through here into the side and the back of the rib cage. So in a seated position, I want you to take your hands and place them so your thumbs come to the base of the ribs in the back and your fingertips are going to wrap forward. Now as you breathe in, could you try to fill your thumbs with your breath? And exhale out. Try that again as you inhale. Feel the sides and the back of the rib cage starting to expand and inflate like a balloon. And as you breathe out, feel the balloon starting to deflate, closing in and lifting up subtly. Try that again as you inhale, expanding deep into the side and the back of the rib cage. And exhale, breathe out. So inside of the ribs, there's a muscle called your diaphragm. If you're not sure what it is, Google it. You can look up some videos. But I like to think of the diaphragm almost like a jellyfish. And as I breathe in, the diaphragm opens and it comes towards a flattening position. And as I breathe out, the diaphragm actually closes in and comes back up. So it has this kind of playful conductor inside of your body. So imagining this balloon or a thin dome-shaped muscle or like a jellyfish inside of the rib cage. As you inhale, push out and open. And as you exhale, that diaphragm, the jellyfish kind of quality, is sucking in and pulling up. So try that again 2 more times. Breath in through your nose, expand the ribs. And breathe out. 1 more time, expand the side and the back of the rib cage. And exhale, breathe out. Now, one thing to note here is I always want to make sure that this isn't happening. The rib cage flaring outwards. If I'm doing that, I'm going to extend the spine. I want to more think of the back of the rib cage pulling up in space rather than pushing out in space. So let's go 1 more time, I promise. Full breath in. Expand 360 degrees, but encourage the side and the back of the rib cage to lift and travel up and expand more. And exhale, breathe out, try to maintain that. Closing the rib cage in and keeping the abdominals to pull your body up in space. All right, there's our first things that we're going to focus on. So just to recap, I always want you to breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth. Typically, 9 times out of 10, same speed that we inhale is the same speed that we exhale. Second point, the diaphragm is expanding, the rib cage is opening, you're filling the lungs, the lower part of your lungs with your breath, inhaling to open and exhaling to close and lift. Okay, so we think of our torso like a canister. We have the diaphragm at the top, and then we have the pelvic floor kind of as the base of the canister. So everybody take your right hand and spread it out like so. Take your left hand and spread it out like so, okay? I want you to put your pointer finger on top of each other, your thumb on your pinky and your pinky on your thumb, spreading the fingers wide apart. So pelvic floor muscles from here. Where your pointer fingers are, that's going to represent where your symphysis pubis is, your pubic bone, okay? Right here in front. Now the coccyx or the tailbone, okay, back here, that's going to represent where the heel of your hand is, all right? And then where the thumb and the pinkies are, that's going to represent your 2 ischiums, okay, or your 2 sit bones right in through here. So now we have the pelvic floor going from symphysis pubis, the pubic bone, to the tailbone, and your 2 ischiums or your sit bones. So it's like a little hammock underneath. And the pelvic floor can move and play up and down. So not trying to isolate the pelvic floor solely by itself, but it works really well when we get our breath to go into the diaphragm. So we have kind of this internal seesaw happening inside of the body. So breathing again through the nose, and I want you to feel the side and the back of the ribs expand. And if you're seated or if you're cross-legged, now I want you to lean just a little more forward. So you're towards the anterior part of the pelvis. Now on a scale of 1 to 10, just to like let's say a 7, okay? Can you start to lift the pelvic floor up? It'd be kind of hard to hold for an hour, huh? So let that drop. Now this time I want you to lift the pelvic floor muscles up, scale of 1 to 10 to a 2. Now not my favorite cue for this, but it's like those muscles that you have to pee and you're just trying to pull them up just to kind of stop the flow and then let them relax. So thinking of it as a tissue kind of being pulled out of a box, or thinking of it as like a syringe and you're trying to suck up a little water from the floor. Great images to think of, isn't it? Yeah. So now from here, close your eyes again, sit yourself up tall, feel the side and the back of the rib cage starting to expand as you breathe in. And as you exhale, I want you to gently lift the pelvic floor muscles up, scale of 1 to 10 to a 2, as you feel the diaphragm coming up also, holding up. Try that again, breath and expand 360 degrees into the ribs. And on the breath out, feel the pelvic floor muscles gently lifting up as the diaphragm comes up also. One more time, breath in and exhale out. So you're probably starting to feel a little heat happening into your stomach muscles, right? So our abdominal muscles, we've got 4 of them, okay? And our abdominal muscles, they all attach to our ribs, kind of the lower ribs in front, and they also all attach to the pelvis. Now the ones that are on the outside are rectus abdominals. They kind of run up and down. Those are like our 6-pack muscles, okay? They're responsible for flexing the spine. Underneath that, we've got internal and external obliques that go from pelvis to ribs and ribs to pelvis. Now those oblique muscles are responsible for twisting our bodies, responsible for side bending. They're also responsible for flexion. They help to stabilize the pelvis. They can be stabilizers, movers, and they're also important with breathing too. And then underneath that, there's one more called your transverse abdominals, and they wrap around us kind of like a belt or like a corset. So their fibers run horizontally. All right, so we've got the rectus abdominals, the internal and external obliques, and now the horizontal wrapping abdominals, the transverse abdominals. Now the transverse abdominals, they're not really great movers, they're more stabilizers. So this time again, I want you to lay down onto your back. Take your pointer fingers and find the inside little notches of your pelvis here. Let's go back to that breath in through your nose, expanding the side and the back of the ribs. And as you exhale, find those pelvic floor muscles to gently lift up, scale of 1 to 10 to a 2. And then imagine a belt wrapping internally around your stomach, so your abdominals aren't pushing and poking out, but they're more subtly wrapping internally in. Try that again as you inhale, expanding through the side and the back of the rib cage. And as you exhale, subtly lift the pelvic floor to a 2. Feel this internal wrapping sensation of your abdominals. And where your fingers are, you don't want to feel them push out. You want to feel it kind of tighten and wrap around. Now take one hand to your belly and one hand again to your chest. Breath in again, expand the rib cage to meet the mat. Exhale, activate pelvic floor muscles, feel them lightly pulling up and feel that transverse abdominal wall horizontally wrapping around you like a belt. One more time, breath in and exhale out. Now even on that inhale breath, try to avoid your breath from filling into the belly, but let the breath fill the back of the rib cage. 3 more. Every time you breathe in, expand the side and the back of the ribs. And every time you exhale, check in with the pelvic floor, maintaining that scale of 1 to 10 to a 2, lifting the abdominals, wrapping in. One last time, breath in and exhale out. Now let your arms rest down by your side, feel the back of your neck long, and give me 3 more breaths in. Trying to avoid any unnecessary tension into your body, especially up into the neck and shoulders. Last 2. Breathe in, inflate the back of the rib cage to meet the mat. And breathe out, feel the pelvic floor muscles working, feel the abdominal muscles wrapping in, closing upwards to meet the rib cage. One last time. So you should start to feel some heat into your abdominals, and you should start to feel a little bit of work into your mid-back. All right, and that's our breathing principle, guys. So just to recap, I'm always looking that you're, or watching, I can see, even at home, that you're breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth. The breath is three-dimensionally expanding the side and the back of the rib cage. The pelvic floor muscles are always gently lifting up to about a 2. The deep transverse abdominal muscles are wrapping around to support the rib cage and the pelvis to stay stable and pulling up and in. And as always, you never want to build unnecessary tension into your body, especially into your neck and into your back. So breathing principle definitely takes the longest. Please review this section of the video over and over again until you feel successful with your breath work, that you're not getting tension into the neck and you're not getting tension into the belly. For some of you, this may be brand new and there's a big learning curve with this. So spend some time on it. Don't just fly through the breathing and just think, oh, I got it, I've got it. I want you to feel very successful and tension-free as we go through all of your exercises and the rest of our website and all through the videos. Now our second principle I want to talk about is our pelvis, okay? So if we look at the pelvis here on our lovely Mr. Bones, all right? The pelvis and the spine work together. So Pilates has a lot of pelvic movement with it. Now sometimes we need some stability of the pelvis and sometimes we need the pelvis to be a little more mobile depending on the exercise. So there's two positions that you'll hear me say working in, either neutral or imprint. Now a neutral position of the pelvis is when these little bony knobs of the pelvis here in front, kind of the forward crest of the pelvis, for all of you anatomy people out there, it's called your anterior front, superior top, iliac spine, and that's just the pelvis. So anterior, superior, iliac spine, or your ASIS. Watching that ASIS and your symphysis pubis, your pubic bone, lie pretty much on the same line. If you're laying down, they're horizontal to the floor. If you're standing up, they're vertical with each other. Now when those two spots match up, it puts a very subtle curve of the lower back actually going forward, an anterior curve, convex, of the lumbar spine. Now the lumbar spine here, there's 5 of them, okay? There's 5 vertebrae, all right? 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So you can see that they start to just subtly curve in, and that's what I'm looking for in a neutral position of the pelvis. Rarely will you hear me say, push the pelvis into the mat, okay, or push the lower back into the mat. Not what we're looking for. My goal as your teacher is to educate you on how to stay stable in a neutral position of your body so you can go through life tension-free. So let's practice this. Laying again onto your mat, and it all comes back to that breathing principle. I'm going to go this way this time. I want you to find the heel of your hands to rest down onto those little bony knobs of your pelvis in front. And then allow for your pointer finger to rest right on top of your pubic bone. As your feet just lie flat onto the floor, all 10 of your toes into the ground, go back to that breathing principle. Breathe and expand the side and the back of the ribs. And as you exhale and breathe out, I want you to rock your pelvis under. So the pubic bone is going up higher towards the ceiling. And then reverse that. Rock your pelvis, creating more of an arch into the lower back, so your pubic bone is reaching further away from your ribs. Rock the pelvis again so your pelvis pulls towards the rib cage. Lengthen the pelvis away from the rib cage. So just feel how the pelvis can move and respond. And one more time, we're going to call this a posterior tilt as the pelvis pulls more towards the ribs, and an anterior tilt as the pelvis pulls away from the rib cage. Now find the middle of those two extremes. So those two little bony knobs of your pelvis and your symphysis pubis, or your pubic bone, are level with each other. When that's there, we should have a very subtle curve of the lower back. So now you've got your sacrum, your tailbone, your mid-back and your rib cage, and the back of your neck very firm into the floor. Take one of these pads away. Okay. There. And you shouldn't feel your lower back jamming. This is again called our neutral position of the pelvis. Now add your breath in. Breathe in, expand the back of the ribs. And exhale, breathe out. Breathing in again through the nose. And as you exhale and breathe out, maintain your neutral position of the pelvis, activate the pelvic floor muscles, and feel the abdominals wrapping in and pulling up. I'm going to add what's called a leg slide with this. Breathe in, I'm going to maintain my neutral alignment. And on the breath out, I'm just going to lightly slide one leg out along the mat, not allowing my pelvis to change. And then I'm going to slide the leg back up to return. Try that twice more. As you exhale, slide the leg away from your body. And as you inhale, come right back up. Now the main thing here is as your leg goes out, you don't want to see that your body overly tips, okay? You want to maintain those abdominal muscles to wrap in and pull up. One more. Now, if you're going to be joining us for some of the reformer videos, it's like you would do with the leg press or our footwork. Try the other side. As you exhale first, slide the leg again slowly away from the body. Feel those abdominals wrapping in. Breathe in and slide the leg to return. Exhale, the leg glides away. Inhale to slide it back up. And again, as you exhale, glide the leg away. And inhale to return. Maintaining your best neutral, and then relax. It's challenging. Okay, now our next position that we may work in is called an imprinted position. Now just to know, anytime our feet are onto the floor or a fixed surface, the foot bar, anytime our feet are rested into something, we're going to call that a closed kinetic chain. I always want you to be in neutral. Now if we have one leg up and one foot down, you're still in a pretty much closed kinetic chain, you're still going to be neutral. Now anytime both legs are lifted, we're in what now it's called an open kinetic chain. And this is where things get a little bit gray. You can easily do this in neutral if we have that endurance and the strength build up from our abdominal muscles to stabilize us and with our diaphragm to breathe. But for some of you new folks out there, that might be too much of a load for the abdominals in the back to maintain a good solid neutral position, and we may start to overly tip the pelvis, shorten the lower back, lengthen the abdominals, boom, then your hips and your low back are definitely going to bug you. So for our new people, what we're going to do is come to more of what's called imprint. So as you imprint the pelvis, it's just a very subtle posterior tilt. So start by breathing in through your nose, expand the side and the back of the ribs. On the breath out, activate pelvic floor. Wrap the abdominal wall in first, the transverse wall, and then subtly tip the pelvis towards the rib cage. On your breath in, lengthen your pelvis back again to your neutral. Try that again as you exhale. Very subtly rock the pelvis towards the ribs. You may feel the lower back heavier to the floor. And on your inhale breath, lengthen the pelvis just to the neutral, not the anterior tilt. Last two, as you exhale, tip the pelvis towards the rib cage, flattening through your abdominal line. Inhale, lengthen the pelvis away from the ribs. And one more time. And lengthen. Now rock the pelvis again back to that subtle imprinted position and pause. You shouldn't feel the tension into the neck. The abdominals are not poking up. They're lying in flat. Arms down by your side, and I want you to peel your right foot up off the floor to a tabletop position, coming up heel ball toe. Maintain the imprint, maintain the rib cage on the floor, then lower the foot down toe ball heel, holding that subtle imprinted position or posterior tilt. Now the left foot, as you exhale, peel the left foot up, heel ball toe, come to the tabletop position, and inhale, lower down toe ball heel. One more time each way as you exhale, peel the right foot back up, maintain an imprinted position, lower the foot down, toe ball heel, and last time other side, start the exhale first, maintain the imprint, peel the left leg up, lower the foot back down, lengthen the pelvis again back to neutral. Good. So anytime both feet are on the floor or one foot's on the floor, we're always going to be in neutral. Anytime both legs come up in the beginning, we're going to come to imprint. So just practice this imprint one more time, this time lifting both legs up. So breath into prepare, and as you exhale, tip the pelvis again back to that subtle imprinted position. Just as we did previously, exhale, peel one leg up to tabletop. Now we did it on one foot first, just to build the endurance. Breath in to stay. Now exhale, peel the other foot up to meet it. Heel ball toe, maintain those abdominals flat so they don't poke out. Take one foot all the way back down. Have the other foot follow. Then lengthen the pelvis back to neutral, but your abdominals are still working to wrap in. Try that again as you exhale. Activate pelvic floor, wrap the transverse wall in first, then tip the pelvis to imprint. Breathe in, let's peel the right foot back up again to tabletop. Start the exhale first, then pick the other foot to meet it. Inhale, lower the right foot down, toe ball heel. Exhale, the other foot follows. Inhale, lengthen to neutral. One more. Activate pelvic floor and abdominal wall first, then rock the pelvis to imprint. Start with the left foot. Inhale, peel the left foot up, heel ball toe. Exhale, the right foot meets it. Inhale, lower the left foot down. Exhale, the other foot comes to join in. Lengthen the pelvis again back to neutral. And that's our pelvic position, pelvic placement principle. So spend some time on that as well, making sure that you can maintain a very good imprinted position before we lift both of the legs up with our abdominals lying flat, never building unnecessary tension in the body. Now our third principle that I want to go over is called our rib cage placement. So again, with our ribs, we've kind of touched on this already in our breathing principle, but with our ribs, we again have 12 ribs of the rib cage, and each one of those ribs actually attaches to one of our thoracic vertebrae. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So 12 thoracic vertebrae, 12 ribs of the rib cage. So whatever my ribs do, that's going to affect what happens with my mid-back. Now also, all of our abdominal muscles insert and attach to the ribs. So if my abdominal muscles are lengthening, that's going to flare the rib cage forward. That's what's going to cause overextension of the back. So it really does all come back to our breathing principle. Thinking of how the rib cage can expand 360 degrees as we breathe in. The abdominal muscles can pull up, and we can feel this kind of closure of the rib cage pulling in and lifting up subtly. So practice this time. We're going to go into what's called arm scissors or arm raises. We're going to lay again down into the back. Knees are bent with the feet flat into the floor. Begin by reaching your arms up towards the ceiling. Palms are going to face each other, and this way you can feel that the rib cage maintains a little more contact with the floor. Take a breath in to stay. On the exhale out, find the abdominal muscles, the pelvic floor to pull in, deep abdominals to wrap in, and your pelvis in neutral. One more time. Breath in again as you maintain neutral position of the pelvis and the rib cage to the floor. Now on the exhale, I want you to allow your arms to come overhead behind you, only going so far back that the rib cage doesn't flare and leave the ground. Breathe in, lift your hands back up, and breathe out, lower your arms down. Inhale, lift the arms up. Exhale, take them overhead. Inhale, lengthen your arms up. And exhale, lower down. So your goal here is to maintain a sense of even weight through the rib cage into the mat underneath you, only allowing the arms to go so far overhead behind that your rib cage doesn't flare from the floor. Now don't forget about those internal stability muscles. Pelvic floor muscles are pulling up and in. Transverse wall is wrapping in and pulling up as well. One more time. Inhale, lift the arms up. Exhale, go over. Inhale, lift. And exhale, lower down. So if you ever hear me in some of the videos say, keep the rib cage maintained and connected, or only take your arms so far overhead behind you, it's just to make sure that this doesn't happen. Just putting a little more thought and awareness into your movement patterns and what's happening skeletal-wise with your body, not just muscle-wise. All right, fourth principle. Let's talk about our scapula, our shoulder blades. So our scapula, as you can see here, lacks bony attachment on the body. So it's screwed in. There's little screws right here that are, keeping the scapula onto the ribs. So the only attachment that the scapula has on the body is actually right here at the collarbone, the acromioclavicular joint. So with this, I need to make sure that my structure is in a good spot first, the pelvis, the spine, and the ribs, and then think about what's happening with the scapula. Now ideally I want the scapula to lie flat and flush against the rib cage, but that's not going to happen if my body's in this flex forward position or overly extended. So again, I have to make sure that the pelvis is in neutral, which is going to put a neutral curve of the lower back, and then that's going to put, hopefully when we breathe, a slight convex posterior curve of the thoracic spine. So the scapula has a couple of available ranges of motion that it can move into, and the first one's called protraction. So I'm going to turn so you can see my back. All right, scapula, shoulder blades back here. So in a tall seated position, I'm going to find my best neutral. Bony knobs of the pelvis and the symphysis pubis lined up with each other. Subtle curve of the lumbar spine going forward. And now the first move is called protraction. As you can see, my scapula is going to move away from center. And then I'm going to take it back to neutral, trying to keep the scapula flat on the ribs. On the breath in, I'm going to allow for the protraction to happen, coming from the serratus and the chest, the pec muscles. And on the breath out, I'm going to allow the scapula to return to neutral. One more time, breathing in, the scapula protracts forward, and breathing out, the scapula lies flat on the ribs. Now the reverse of that, this is called retraction. The scapula gliding towards center or towards the middle of the spine. Exhale to return to neutral. On the inhale, now it's my rhomboid muscles drawing more towards each other. Exhale to return. Now try to avoid this, the neck from scrunching and lifting up, but more think of the bottom tips, the inferior angle of the scapula pulling together and returning, avoiding the body from extending as well. So we can go through protraction and retraction. I always think of protraction like I'm trying to protect something in front of me, and the retraction like my arms are just gliding along a track. Good, now let them rest down. Find the middle of those two so you're not too protracted or retracted. Shoulders flush on the ribs. Now the next one's called elevation. That's when the scapula can travel upwards, and the depression is when the scapula can travel downwards. I'm lengthening up with the lats, and I'm shortening on the pecs and the lats as I press into the depression. Inhale again, this is elevation and depression. Find the middle of those four extremes now. And the last one I want to go to is called upward rotation. This is where the bottom tips of the shoulders are wrapping around and up and forward. And the downward rotation, the scapula is just kind of moving back in towards center. So imagine the shoulders like windshield wipers. As the arms come up, the scapula is just kind of gliding away from center, from the bottom tips, pushing out and away. And as I downwardly rotate the scapula, it's like the bottom tips of the scapula are paralleling each other or coming back in towards the middle of the spine. So upward rotation, downward rotation. This way I can have an even glide of the scapula as I move my arms and try not to just jam them down and keep them stuck, but upward rotation and downward rotation. So anytime we come into like an ab prep position or like our version of a crunch, hands come behind the head. Whenever I'm flexing the spine, I want to allow for protraction to happen, not the retraction so I don't get too much tension into the neck, but allowing the scapula to wrap forward with me. Same as I come into extension, spinal extension, I want to allow for retraction of the scapula to happen. Okay. If I come up into subtle extension, I don't want to let the shoulders hang forward, but I want to allow for the retraction of the scapula to pull back. That way my scapula always lies flat onto the rib cage. Okay? Now the last principle I want to go through is our head and cervical placement principle. Now our head and our neck, super important, all right? I'm always watching that the ears balance over the shoulders. And you can see for me, I added one little pad down, and that's just to make sure that as I'm laying onto the floor, I've got just my head balanced right over the shoulders. Some days I need it, some days I don't. But ideally, eventually we want to get rid of the pad. So that way when you're laying down onto the ground, you're not overextending the neck and lengthening it out too much. So it's good to have someone check you to see if your ears are over your shoulders. Maybe put your phone beside you, take a quick little picture or video and see, does your neck look like it's out of balance, or do your ears track right over top of the shoulders? So we have 7 cervical vertebrae of our neck here. And what I'm always watching for is before we lift up into like an ab prep or crunch or chest lift, whatever you want to call it, that we're subtly nodding the chin. The first 2 vertebrae are just going to move just to create a little more length into the back of the neck, activating more of this sternocleidomastoid. That's going to help pull the collarbone up, lift the ribs up, and keep the shoulders flat onto the rib cage. So again, I'm always watching that the head bounces over the shoulders. You may hear me say slightly nod the chin, then lift the head and shoulders up. So let's just say we're going to go into an ab prep, which we'll learn in just a bit. So everybody lay down again onto your back. You're almost done with your basics. Take your pointer fingers and your middle finger right at the base of the neck here. Now feel the scapula slightly kind of protracted and a little upwardly rotated as well. And I want you to very lightly nod your chin, feeling just how the first 2 vertebrae can move, and return your gaze back up. Find the pelvic floor muscles, find the transverse wall, then subtly nod the chin, and return the gaze up. Now this time I want you to really push your chin in toward your chest. See how that starts to lift the back of the ribs from the floor too? So that's going to be a little too far. You just want to feel this lengthening sensation through the back of the neck activating that sternocleidomastoid, which connects from the base of the rib or the base of the neck to the clavicle, the collarbone. And then I want you to start to lift the head, the chest, and the shoulders off the floor, maintaining a neutral position of your pelvis. Now stay, full breath and expand the ribs. And exhale as you lower down. Try that again. Inhale, subtly nod the chin. Those first two vertebrae move. And on the breath out, lift the head, the chest, and the shoulders up, looking towards the middle of your thighs. Take a full breath in, expanding the side and the back of the ribs. And breathe out as you lower all the way back down. Try that one more time. Lightly nod the chin, lengthen the back of the neck. Your head still is on the floor. Exhale, breathe out through the mouth. Activate abdominals and pelvic floor muscles as you start to flex the thoracic spine forward. Take a full breath in. Exhale, return. So that's our Pilates way to do our chest lift or ab prep, whatever you want to call it, crunches. But I'm going to add a little twist with this, adding more of this pulling sensation. So I'm going to have my heels down, toes up towards the ceiling, squeezing the inner thighs towards each other, and then just adding a little tug. Kind of, so now I've got like something to pull my upper mid-back and my abdominals away from. So big toes touch, heels slightly apart, squeeze your inner thighs together, and just tug. Keep your butt on the floor. Now take your hands behind your head, subtly nod the chin, squeeze your inner thighs in tight, relax your glutes, and now lift the head, the chest, and the shoulders up. Now we've recruited a little more muscle, those adductors, to really help. Take a breath in to stay, keep pulling, maintaining your best neutral, and then lower back down. Again, subtly nod the chin. Draw those inner thighs in tight, and on the breath out, flexing the thoracic spine, lifting up and looking towards the knees. Take a breath in. You could fit your fist or like 3 inches between the chin and the chest. Tug harder from those inner thighs. And exhale, lower down. 2 more. Subtly nod the chin. On the exhale, flex the thoracic spine. Lift up, looking towards those knees. Squeeze. Take a breath in. Feel those abdominals working. Find that little bit of a shake. It means you're making changes. And then exhale to return all the way down. 1 more. Pull, flex those feet, find your shins to work also. Take a breath in and exhale down. So as we go through your workouts, you may see that I might cue you to keep your feet down flat, which is totally fine. That's our Pilates way to do it. And then adding in some concepts from another technique called foundation training of just pulling, getting some adductors and some hamstrings to activate as well, but just keep the butt on the floor for that one. There you go. So guys, I know it's a lot of information. So if you're new to Pilates, spend some time on this first part. This is why I want you to start here. This is what's going to make you successful. This is what's going to make you tension-free. Don't just fly through a lot of these exercises. Come back and review this video, maybe once a month, once a week, whatever you need to feel successful inside of your body. I hope you enjoyed this video, and our next one, we're going to be talking about basic mat work exercises as well as a basic mat work warm-up. All of that's just going to incorporate what we've just talked about into movement patterns. Thank you again, and I'm so happy that you are here joining me at My Daily Reform. Again, my name is Gabrielle Cahoon. Have a wonderful rest of your day.